It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
Hey guys, how is it going? And welcome to the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. It is Tuesday, July 11th, and so happy for you joining us. We are ready to start another day together with the Lord. So subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. Today we have an exciting podcast for you. We have Provi in the media, the practical word study, and of course commentaries, updates, and news on what is happening around the world in this history today. All right, how are you doing, everyone? Yes, Monday is over. I'm super happy about that. The hardest day of the week, just to get things going again. How was your Monday, by the way? It is Tuesday morning. We're ready to start and get into the meat of the week. If you haven't yet already, please leave a like and comment to build our community. Just super happy for everyone joining us every weekday on the Morning Star Drive. So let's get up and support each other each and every day. All right, so it is Tuesday, guys. Wonderful day. A little bit chilly here in Vancouver, surprisingly, because the weekend was really, really good. For myself, for some reason, I haven't gained any weight. I'm still around the same weight, around 177, 178. But I feel like I've been gaining weight. I don't know if that makes any sense. I just feel like I'm getting heavier. And I think part of it is because I think I'm eating more and I'm not exercising. Like I skipped 2 days this week when I usually skip only one. So I think, yeah, maybe it's just kind of in my head. But because of that, I worked a little bit harder today when I worked out. But man, there's something that's been bothering me. Okay, so this is not something that has to do with anything really important. This is, like, what I'm going to talk about now is totally not important. It's important only to me, not to other people, only to me. And for me, it's like, man, I've been trying to figure out to myself over the last 2 weeks why I'm all of a sudden breaking out. Like, I'm getting pimples, right? I know I sound like a total teenager. Like, I'm going, what the heck? Why do I have this pimple on my nose? It just really, really bothers me. And I thought to myself, has I changed anything in my lifestyle or my diet? And I say I kind of broke it down to maybe 3 different types of foods that might have affected my complexion. And I think one of them is I'm starting to eat more eggs now because of the protein. So that possibly could be it. So I stopped eating eggs for a bit just to see the difference. I thought it could be oysters because I had oysters twice during these 2 weeks. Or it could be popcorn. And I think it might be the popcorn. Not sure yet. But I'm abstaining from all 3 of those things first just to kind of see if it's one of those 3 things. But I don't know what it is. I don't know, dude. Don't you guys hate it when you get that one pimple the center, smack in the middle of your face? And it's so visible. Like when you talk to someone, you can almost feel that they're staring only at that one pimple. You know what I mean? It's like you think it's like, like I don't know why. I feel like I look at their eyes to see if they're staring at it. And I almost want to just bring it up anyways. It's like, all right, guys, I know, okay? I got a pimple in the middle of my face. I got it. Okay, I just want to say that sometimes, but I abstain from doing that. I can't stand looking in the mirror because the only thing I see is that pimple. Ugh. And then of course, I'm sure many people have this urge to you want to pop it, right? You just want to pop it. I don't know what it is. It's that super satisfying feeling of popping that pimple when you just see like the white ooze coming out. You're like, oh, finally. Or sometimes there's like this giant explosion where it flies onto the mirror and stuff, right? You're just like, oh, like it's satisfying. It's satisfying, right? Is it just me or is it really, really it's satisfying, isn't it? But I also know if you don't pop it well, if you don't do it cleanly, it gets worse, right? And then it infects or you'll get other pimples forming and stuff like that too. So I'm just like, So I'm abstaining. I am. Yeah, try my best not to touch it and stuff like that too. I don't know. Forget it, guys. I don't know why I'm saying this. Either way, so it's just been on my mind. I can't help it. By the way, some of you guys were asking about how did the football game go. Yes, it was a Canadian Football League. Not soccer. It was American football in Canada. And of course, the home team, my team won 35-19. Exciting game. Had a lot of fun. Really, really great seats to smack in center field. Very, very close to the action. So I was super excited about it. And I had to become very, very Canadian. And I ordered a poutine. Guys, if you have never heard of poutine, it's probably because you've never been to Canada. Poutine is like French fries, just like smothered in gravy and has like cheese curds. It's so good, guys. The one I had at the stadium was terrible, but usually poutines are very, very, very good. And if you want good poutine, sometimes the best place to go to is just Costco. Costco sells it too. It's so good. Either way, why am I saying this? Two things I'm actually looking forward to today. Or this week, right? Because I told you there's a beach barbecue coming out this Saturday, so I can't wait for a beach barbecue. That just sounds amazing and fun. But also, tonight, which is Monday for me, I'm going to be watching Mission Impossible. I already bought tickets for special early access event, right? To watch the screening of Mission Impossible. It's not in my area. It's a little bit further out, but I can't wait for it. Mission Impossible going out tonight. Early showing. It's supposed to come out on the 12th. I'm watching it on the 10th, so it's 2 days early. So I am excited. And I'm going to go watch it alone. Not because I don't have friends. It's because no one wants to watch it with me. Well, I can't know that. That sounds bad too. So that sounds like I have no friends. I do have friends. I have many friends. No, that sounds really desperate too. So I'm not going to say that either. I am watching alone. Because I want to, right? Because I want to. That sounds really bad too. But either way, I asked a couple of my friends. No one was really available for that time. So I'm going to watch Mission Impossible tonight on my own, early access. Those of you guys who want to come, I'm sorry. Tickets are sold out, so maybe next time. But either way, I don't know. Maybe for me, I think I'm more of an early adopter style, right? I want to see it early. Even if I could just wait an extra week or so and not deal with the crowds, I don't know why. I like to see it early, and then of course it's good content for my podcast, just to say, hey, I saw it. This is what I thought about it, kind of thing, right? But of course, that one is I'm going to be watching that, but also probably next week I really want to watch. I want to watch Sounds of Freedom. The more and more I see the reviews on it, the more I want to watch it. It looks pretty intense. It's very controversial and stuff too. For some reason, I'm not sure why, but I really want to watch that. Also, some people are commenting and sending me videos on that too. So that is something I think I do need to watch. But I heard it's very, very emotional. Yeah, they say in the first portion of the movie, they say everyone cries, like multiple times. So I need to prepare myself for that, or watch it when I really need to let out some tears and stuff, and do it man style in the movie theater in the dark when no one is watching. Oh, that sounds so bad. Either way. So let me get into this one thing I do want to talk about, which is one of the comments that came out on YouTube. And first I'm going to say is I'm super grateful for everyone who puts out the comments. Comments are awesome. Like, they've always been awesome. They've never been, like, confrontational. They've never been aggressive. They've never been disrespectful. And this is why I love the community that we have. There's always good questions, good feedback, super respectful. Even if there's a disagreement, I really feel like, that our comment section is probably the best in YouTube. Because I've seen some terrible comment sections out there. Ours is good. I'm just so good. I'm very, very proud and happy of our comment section and all the people that listen here. Super awesome comment that came out talking about the female career department going out to help and evangelize with male evangelism, right? And this is something that's kind of more recent, right? It's more recent, and there's more people that are going out to evangelize, right? And this person wrote that they're going out to help, whether it's through prayer, street evangelism, creating soccer events, whatever it is, right? But then this person says their intent is to find males of a younger generation for the future. And she wouldn't feel comfortable trying to find males of the same age domain or same pool with the intent of seeking a potential future husband. And I wouldn't know how to connect them that way anyways. And because then your purpose is mixed, and once they realize that you are teaching them the word and could only potentially be together with them if they come to your church, which makes it conditional, it feels rather awkward. And this person also worries that the focus of older males could be too much on finding a partner. So if they're not centered enough on God and his will, they would just leave anyways once they don't get what they came for. So the current thoughts this person has is that if the risk is not getting married, then so be it, a risk that already exists for many females. But I do appreciate your insights because I never thought that way, and it's never been a direction given by church. You mentioned about Sunseem's direction. I wonder, did he really intend for us to basically find partners through evangelism? Okay, so here it is. So this is a very, very good comment with multiple parts, okay? And I'm going to go through it step by step, and I want to talk, but the first caveat, the first thing I want to say is, I don't believe what I'm talking about is the most ideal way, right? It's just not. And the only reason this all of a sudden started to come out is because of why? Is because our situation is not ideal. So because our situation is unideal, this is why there is no choice for this to happen, right? So that's one of the things I do want to reiterate, that this is not something that I actually gun for. I'm like, oh, I'm supporting this like crazy because I think this is the best way. I don't think it's the best way. I think it's, like this person said, also higher risk, right? It's going to be higher risk for sure, right? And that's the first thing I want to say. I don't think it's the best way. But it's only happening because the situation is not ideal, okay? So, let's get into a couple of the things that were said. The first one is about the conditional statement, like conditional marriage. Like, if your purpose is mixed, once they realize that you're teaching them the word and could only potentially be together with them if they come to your church, which makes it conditional, it feels awkward. Okay? And that actually, I would say, is not uncommon. Meaning, you will find a lot of marriages and a lot of people who find their religion as one of the central and most important parts of their life, that they will not marry someone unless they become Christian, unless they become Catholic, unless they become Muslim, or whatever on that line. So this is actually something that may be awkward maybe to you as an individual, but in the world, it's not seen as a crazy thing, because there are many people who do believe that way, and people who will break up and not marry someone because they refuse to be in the same religion. So I would say this is something that it could be potentially awkward, but if things are said early enough, then like in the world, people will say it early enough, like I wouldn't marry someone who wasn't Christian, and people will understand it and they will make their decision based on that. So I think that's not really like a huge thing, because religion is such a quintessential part of many people's lives in the world, right? I can understand how it could be awkward, but I don't think it's something that is weird. Many people do put that as a condition for marriage, particularly religion. So that's the first part I'll talk about. The second part is that's one of the worries, right? Is what if the focus of evangelizing older males is the focus is too much on finding a partner and not enough centered on God and his will, right? And they would just leave anyways once they don't get what they came for. And the answer is absolutely. I agree with that. I agree with it. And I also believe that we are in a situation, there is no other choice at this point. There basically is no other choice. Right? And if, like, let's just say it this way, is if there's not enough males right now, then if everyone keeps evangelizing the younger guys for the next generation, then basically the entire older generation is probably going to be expected to not get married. Like the entire older generation, which is a lot already right now. Right? So one thing I'm completely agree. Sometimes it's going to be hard for you to center. Are you going to be centered enough on God, or is it going to be more about finding a partner? You know, like that's like, oh my gosh, what does that mean? Right? And the answer is, yeah, I completely agree with it. I just look at the situation, and if we look at it realistically, there is no choice at this point. Right? And even though I commend you for having these thoughts that the risk is you not getting married, then you're fine with it. Right? I would have to say, and I think some people will probably put this in the comments, I don't think the majority is okay with that. Like, oh, if I don't get married, then fine, I won't get married. Because even when you look at the statistics in the world right now, even the women who don't, like right now, we're at a time where we have the most amount of people not married over 40. Not in Providence, we're talking in the world. In the world right now, people who have never gotten married, we are at the highest point, the highest percentage of people, the most amount of people not getting married after 40 is right now. And also, we have statistics that a lot of women especially, they regret much later, like in their 40s, that they should have done it. I should have gotten married. I should have done it. It's become something that's a very big, important part where they regret focusing too much on career or regret focusing too much on things other than family itself, like even getting married, right? So I think kudos to you that if you're okay with it. Like if I don't get married, so be it. Like that's something I think that it's going to take a lot of, I don't know how old you are either, but it's statistically, the older you get, the harder it becomes to actually accept that. The older you get, right? So, and I think that's something that we do have to think about is maybe not just for the individual, but we have to take a look at the entire situation, right? The entire situation of all, what is happening right now. And when I talked about like Sunsteam's direction, we need to understand that Sunsteam's direction is coming actually from that because of the blessing. There are not enough guys, which means it's coming, directly from the lack of finding marriage partners. Is not for, the point of it is not for, we don't have a good ratio. Like, we're not doing it for the sake of ratio. The reason why this becomes so important is because you have to start looking at the blessings, the last blessing, the blessing before that, and the blessing before that, where there are a ton of people who can't find a partner, not because they have bad character, not because they're not financially well, but it's because there are no guys, right? So you have to understand that direction is not coming for no reason. It's coming because of marriage. And we see the future now is we can't let it go this far, right? And yeah, the intention for all of a sudden, you got to think about this. It never happened. Just this in itself is a sign knowing that it's not a good situation is Sunsteam all of a sudden saying, all right, girls, go find guys. Go find guys to evangelize. It just never happened this way. But we know that it's that bad because just look at the sign is Sunsteam's all of a sudden allowing it, right? So where does this come from? Yeah, you have to understand it's coming from marriage. That's the hard part. People are writing letters. People are sad, right? People want to get married. And because of this, there is this big shift in evangelism. And now this is why Sunsteam's intention ultimately comes down to marriage itself, right? And if you think about it, if the intention, right, if you see the problem is happening because there's not enough males, especially later on when it comes to marriage, if that's the intention, then it wouldn't make sense. Like, okay, so I want everyone to get married, but I only want you to evangelize people below you. That would make no sense either, because then you're basically throwing away an entire generation of girls that they're never going to get married, which is a lot right now at this moment. And this is why we have to look at the original intention. Why does Sunsteam allow this? Look at the full situation, and it directly has to do with marriage. Directly, right? And then when we see that, it's like, oh, okay, why do we have to evangelize younger? For the sake of the future, but we also need to evangelize for this generation too, right? And this is why some countries actually have evangelism programs for people, males in their 30s, not younger people, males in their 30s, older, people in careers, right? Because it's that important. So that's why when I look at that, I was like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense. There's going to be like, I'll tell you right now, like, first, the situation right now, I can already see if we don't deal with this right now, I can already see something very negative happening in the close future from this situation about like with not having enough guys. If we don't really deal with it right now, I can already see it. I've talked to a lot of other leaders already before. All the leaders, we see it. Like what can possibly happen in the future and is not good if we don't take care of this situation. And that's why we really need to take care of the situation. Now, if you see a lot of these exceptions that are coming out now, a lot of people, when so one thing that's possible though, in the country that you're in, may not have as bad of a ratio, because the countries that I talk to, a lot of them are in a pretty bad situation. There are some better than others and some worse than others too. But it's not a good situation. And we can already see just the fact that Sunseem's allowing this to happen already with the girls going out to evangelize guys. That is something we look at and say, okay, so there's something wrong for sure, because this never happens, right? So I would kind of try to take a big picture look at it. But I would say that I'm not sure what the name is out there for this comment, because the name on the comment is not like a real name. So I'm not sure who it exactly is, right? And because I don't know who it exactly is, it's a little bit harder for me to say. And I don't even know the age. Because if you were in your young 20s or even mid 20s, and maybe, like, I would say even in your 20s, if you're still in your 20s, I do think, actually, is there a name here? Is there a name? No, I don't see a name here. I don't see a name. Yeah, but it's kind of like there is the person who's writing. If you're in your 20s, I would say it would be a lot easier for you to swallow it if you're in your 20s. But the older you get, like say you go into your 30s, your mid 30s, late 30s, the older and older you get, the more you'll see, oh, okay, no, I can't handle this. But if you're in your 20s, I think it's a lot easier to swallow for now, because you're young, because you have your youth ahead of you, because you have so many things you need to do, like finding a career, finding this, finding that, running for this history. But the older the member you talk to, you're gonna hear different things being said. And I really hope it's something that all of us can work together and pray about a lot too. It's very, very important. I think it's super important, and I can see the windfall of what's going to happen in the future if this isn't taken care of properly, right? But if you have more to talk about, you can always DM me. You can always call me. Call me on Instagram and stuff like that too, because this situation, yeah, I would say it's very serious. For myself, when I look at the big picture, I would say it's really serious in the big picture, that we got to get this going. We got to get it going. Let's go and get these people out there, right? Let's get some, let's even out the ratio for the sake not only of this generation, but for future generations too. But great comment. And I hope it's something that we'll all be able to understand at a much deeper level, how much we really need to go out and find these guys out there. All right. So great comment. I love how respectful it was and how insightful it was too. All right, so let's go. So before we get into the first break, a couple things. Number one is today's Provi in the media, and I'm gonna do maybe like a 2 or 3 part series on this one, because there was another. We had Netflix came out March 3rd, and then in Australia they just had another program come out just recently. It was last Sunday. Right, and I did take a look at it when it aired, and I wanted to talk about that a little bit in general today, and then go into a little bit more detail from the next week's on. There are some articles that are written on it already, and I'll post that into the description below, so you guys can take a look at that too. But it should be quite interesting, and I hope that you guys will enjoy today's Provi in the media and put our prayers out for Australia too. It's not easy, regardless of how good or how bad the program is. No matter what, it's out there. And there are going to be people out there that are going to believe it anyways, right? So let's put our prayers out there for all those people in Australia, and I'll go over that in Provi in the media today. Okay? So there it is, guys. That's the first segment for today. So let's get into the first break.
this love will never go away. I'll stay by you until the end, 'cause we're partners in crime, like we're Bonnie and Clyde, and there's nothing that will get in our way, 'cause you're my only one. My heart will stay the same. Only one. I promise I won't change. Only one. My heart will stay the same. Only one. I promise I won't change.
So let's get into today's word study for today. And of course, every single Tuesday we have the practical word study. What can we do to put these words into action? Okay. So this week's message, powerful message. The title is, let me get this straight, which is, don't think about other things. You just need to fulfill the will. Right? It's pretty much, that's actually as practical as it gets. Don't get distracted. You just need to fulfill the will. Get rid of your distractions and just focus on what we should be doing. And there were a couple things that I was thinking about for this week's message. What can I do to put the words into action, make it more practical in my life? Now, one of them is when I was listening to the intro of the Sunday message, one of the things that was said is God is timing. God is time, right? And I really like this statement because I feel that this is something that all of us should realize even more deeply about timing, God's timing. Because it's about understanding the time that we live in right now. Like last week's message was like, this is what God, the Holy Spirit, and Jesus are saying to you right now, kind of thing, right? It's like, realize the time we're living right now. Don't forget the history that we're living in. And it's because of the distractions, the noise on the outside, the things that, like kind of shock us here and there, we forget how crazy and amazing this history we live in is right now. And I think it's good for us to get our hearts and our minds back into realizing once again, where are we right now? Okay? And one of the best ways to realize, I believe, is going over certain lessons in the Bible study about time, right? About God's time. To understand how crazy the timing of God is. Like, for instance, when we look at the three time periods, to look at God's timing, the Old Testament, New Testament, Complete Testament, we have, 4,000, 2,000, 1,000, right? But even when you look at the Old Testament, New Testament, the thing that's so amazing about that is that's 6,000 years. And one of the things that you'll see in the repeating history of time is that a great person comes every 2,000 years, right? So Adam comes and then he commits the fall. 1,600 years later is Noah, and then 400 years later is Abraham. So 1,600 plus 400 is 2,000, right? So from Adam to Abraham is 2,000 years, and Abraham becomes the father of faith. He passes the test of faith. He's willing to sacrifice his own son, and he becomes the father of faith, where his ancestors will be, more numerous than the stars in the sands on the seashore and the stars in the sky. Right? He becomes the father of faith, the beginning point, right? And this is why even when Jesus talks about Abraham, he talks about when he says that who is God? God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He doesn't say I'm the God of Noah. I'm the God of Adam. He starts from the beginning point, which is the father of faith, which is Abraham. So that comes 2,000 years, right? So when we look at that, it's like, okay, so Adam to Noah, 1,600, and then Noah to Abraham is 400, which is 2,000 years. And we see the exact same thing could happen again when it's Abraham to Malachi, the last prophet of the Old Testament, which is 1,600 years, and then 400 years until Jesus. So from Abraham to Jesus, another 2,000 years passes by, and who comes? The Messiah comes at that time, right? And then after that, you have Jesus until Martin Luther, which is 1,600 years, the 16th century. And then after he dies, 400 years later, and then we have the man of mission that comes into this world, right? So every 2,000 years, a great person of God comes into this history. And when you look at that, it's like, wow, it's crazy how, God has been planning this for 6,000 years. Like, I would even go to the Bible and I would start thinking about numbers. Like, there's so many great numbers in the Bible, like the number 7, the number, what else? Number 70. Like, there's a bunch of numbers out there, but I'd say one of the most common numbers, and it shows you how God is time, is like the number 40, right? The number 40 comes out everywhere. So let me ask you this right now. Can you name me sometimes right now in your head the things that were mentioned in the Bible that has to do with the number 40? I'll give you guys a couple of seconds. Just kind of start thinking about some of them in your head, right? I can think about maybe 5 or 6, max. Probably 5 or 6. Maybe if I think about it more deeper, there could be 10. No, I can't think. There's no way I could do 10. There's no way. But there's so many of them, okay? So one is a very, very easy one. I'm sure you guys have already, everyone will get this one is, the time of Noah's flood, it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. 40's right there. Easy one. Desert of Zin. 40 years in the desert of Zin. Jesus fasted in the desert for 40 days. Moses went up to Mount Sinai for 40 days. He did it twice too. Who else is there? No. Elijah also fasted 40 days in the desert. The time of the kings, Saul, David, Solomon, they all reigned for 40 years. What else is there? Oh, Jesus, after he resurrects, he stays on the earth for 40 days and then he ascends up into heaven. Goliath, what did he do? Yeah, Goliath challenged Israel for 40 days and then on the 40th day, what happened? David came and again killed him. I can't think of anything else. Like, there's a bunch of them out there, right? Ezekiel. What was I going to say? Ezekiel did something. It's in the time, half time lesson. 40. He laid on his right side for the house of Judah for 40 days. 40 days, right? For, 1 day for each of the years that they sinned. So when you look at this, you're like, oh my gosh, like the number 40 keeps popping up and you get to see 40. Like, even if you look at the time of Judges, I think after Gideon, there was 40 years of peace. After Samson, there's 40 years of peace, I think. Yeah, some of them too, there's going to be 40 years of peace after that too. Maybe Deborah had one too. But there's a bunch of, there's 40 everywhere, right? And so when you look at those numbers, you start to research these numbers, you're going to see like, whoa, this actually means something. 40 is a time of restitution. 40 is a time of suffering, right? Also, of course, the big lesson that we should learn, that we should go over to look at timing and how great God's timing is time, times, and half a times. That's like the quintessential one where it's so mind-blowing, it gives you the exact year of when Israel receives their independence. Like, that is ridiculous. Like, you got to tell me, guys, there's nothing more ridiculous than that. The exact year. That is ridiculous. 1948 from time times half times 1,260. And then you have 1290, 1335. So you have 1948, 1978, 2023. So that in itself is not mind-blowing. The thing that's mind-blowing, 1940 is mind-blowing because that is a year that Israel received independence, so that is mind-blowing. But 1978 and 2023, why is that mind-blowing? Because that is the exact year that Sunstein comes out. The exact year, right? And no matter what, like we talked about this like a couple weeks ago, even if people say that they realized it even earlier than Sunstein, but even if they knew, no one came out except Sunstein. Sunstein was the only one that came out who's still existing right now and making a grand history, right? And we all know that the central figure path is 21 years public life, 3.5 years grave period, and 21 years resurrection period, right? Which coincides clearly with the grave period that happened in 1999. The first broadcast against Sunstein was January 1999. And then also we see clearly 2023, what's happening here today. So even looking at that, it's really uncanny. It's not a coincidence. It's unbelievable, and it's so powerful when you learn these lessons when it comes to time, how important time is to God, right? If anything, if I went even one step further, if you guys are out there on Patreon, go and search for the history lesson. When you listen to the history lesson, that is mind-blowing, out of your mind-blowing. right? That one is comparing the 2,000 years of the Old Testament and the New Testament. It is so mind-blowing that is another huge testament of how God works in time. So when we look at these things, I'm just like, yeah, you guys just got to check it out. It is incredible. If you go over these types of lessons and go over them in more detail, you're going to see how amazing and how true it is that God is a God of time, God of timing, right? So unbelievable. That's one practical thing that I would do, is go over those types of lessons. The second thing I would go over, because this comes out in the message also, is getting a better understanding of resurrection and Advent. I would actually say resurrection, Advent, and the spiritual world, those three are like kind of connected from this week's message, right? And this is one of those things that a lot of people have forgotten. And that's the concept of Advent resurrection, right? So we're like, what is Advent resurrection? Well, Advent resurrection, what was talked about in the Sunday message, meaning people who have already died, waiting, who haven't heard the word, waiting for the Christ. And I think a lot of people have have not heard the concept, or maybe forgot the concept of Advent resurrection, right? People have already died. They died before Jesus came. They died before Jesus came back, and they're waiting for the next time period to come, right? So concepts like this would come out like in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, verse 16 and 17, when it says that the Lord will come down to, rapture everyone, but the dead in Christ will rise first, meaning the people who have died physically, but their faith was alive. So they are dead in Christ, meaning physically dead, but their spirit is in Christ. They will rise first at the time of the rapture. So there's one of the proofs that show us that, yeah, these people are waiting for the Christ to come. They're waiting, and they need to listen to the word. How do we know they need to listen to the word? Well, if you look at 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 19 and 20, also brings up a similar concept where Jesus dies, and then in verse 20 it says he goes to the imprisoned spirits who disobeyed long ago when God waited patiently in the days of Noah while the ark was being built, which means that these people, even though they were disobedient, even though they were against Noah, they still never got a chance to hear the gospel. So what did Jesus do? Jesus went into those imprisoned spirits of the people who never heard the gospel before, right? And then he preached to them the word and stuff like that too. So that's something that I think that we have to get, that understanding, the understanding of the concept of Advent resurrection is very vital for us to help us understand about this week's message. Like one of the things that Sunday have always talked about in the past, when I was growing up, probably in the early 2000s, one thing Sunday always said was, whenever you teach and preach the word, you are, even if you're just teaching one person, there's not just one person there. There are many people there. There's spirits listening to you too. Right? So the spirits listen so that they can hear the words, they can realize a time period and cross over into the new time period too. And this is why Sunday tells lecturers many times, even if it's just one newcomer, you have to realize there are many spirits that are listening together, so do not think you are in front of just a small audience or just one person, right? So that is a big concept that I think that we have to review when it comes to the Advent resurrection, which we'll find probably in the rapture lesson, resurrection lesson for sure, right? And then, of course, another thing is the concept that we heard from this week's message in Matthew 17 about, Moses and Elijah working at the time of Jesus, is that spirits of the past are working in the physical realm today using the body of the people that are very similar. Right? So Matthew 17 is the Mount of Transfiguration. And in the Mount of Transfiguration, we are going to see that, remember, and we can't help it. Even in Malachi chapter 4, verse 5 and 6, it does say that Elijah will come back again, which means Elijah will work through someone else. And obviously that is John the Baptist. So when we see and understand this, it's not just God working through us when we preach the word, but it's also who else? It's also other righteous spirits, and there's wicked spirits out there that are demon possessing people and and tormenting people also. And in the same way, the disciples, the people who are strong in Christ, the people who are with God, they will be working through our bodies also, depending on our level and our mission. Right? So that's the key point, is John the Baptist had the same mission as Elijah, the same level, and that's why Elijah can work through him. So it's not like we can just all of a sudden sit there and say, Peter used me, Paul used me, Jesus used me, God used me. No, we have to reach that level. That's why we have to become spiritual people. We have to find out what our mission is, right? And when we find these things, we're able to understand that we're not alone. There are many times you have the spirits that are working together with us. And like I said from the yesterday's word study, it is not reincarnation. They are working together with us, right? So there are a bunch of things that I would do when it comes to us understanding and understanding this week's message even better. And I would probably say the third thing that would be something that's going to be a little bit more physical is I would actually start to shut off my phones, right? Or start to really begin to focus on your mission again. Like just start focusing on your mission again. Don't worry about the other stuff going on. Focus on your mission, right? Now is a time not to be distracted, looking at all the things going around. Let's just get our missions down. This is the opportunity, the chance that we have right now to get these missions done in this difficult time where things are worth even more. The blessings are worth even more. Because making $1 million in the good times where the stock market and everything is like, it's a bull market where everything is going well is so easy. But imagine making $100,000 in a bear market where things are terrible. It's even harder and it's actually more commendable. And you'd be doing even better for your company by doing it at that time. So even for me, I look at that and say, yeah, I would rather, it's harder to do like even if it's the same, $1 million in the bull market compared to $1 million in the bear market, that $1 million is the same amount of money. But because the circumstances are so bad, that company is going to be even more grateful to you, and they're going to want you even more badly because you can do well even when things are tough. You're still producing, right? It'll take a lot more energy, a lot more time, but you're still producing. Either way. So those are kind of some of the things that I would think about when it comes to the practical word study for this week. If you guys got anything you want to add to it, go ahead, add to it. Love to hear from that too. And if there's anything that you want to comment, go ahead, leave it below. Would love to hear from you guys also. All right. So let's move into the second break of today. Okay, so let's get into the final segment for today, which is Provi in the media. We're going to go over all the different things going on around the world in the news, and most of the news I have been going over were in Korea, but today we're going to go into Australia, and Australia has actually been kind of like a hotbed for persecution over the last couple of decades. For those of you who don't know, earlier in the past there was an Australian a slanderer named Peter Daly, and he was someone that, really against Providence and saying this and that, making websites and articles. But eventually, there was a lawsuit that came out. Now he can't do anything about it anymore, so he's gone. But that was already there. And then there was a television program with Peter Daly and another ex-member at that time. And she is also in this new programming that just came out last week. So it's been about 8-9 days now since that programming aired. And one thing that's kind of like comforting to know is that there's a news cycle. Like a news cycle is 24 hours. How many news cycles before the public moves on to the next crisis? And they say it usually takes about 7 news cycles. So 7 days or 1 week, and then people are already moving on to another one, right? So this has already been 9 days, and this is why, we kind of get an idea of what the public outcry, the public opinion is like. Is there outrage or not? And I just talked to some members in the leaders in Australia, and it seems like there's not this huge, outcry and oh my gosh, what's happening here? But there are some things that people are still wary about. We still need to pray a lot for. So, even though this program came out, and regardless of how good or how bad it is, it's still going to affect members over there in Australia. And I really hope that as a community here on the Morning Star Drive, we can really come out and make sure we pray for them also. Especially, like Thule is doing the prayer podcast. I really hope that we'll put that and make sure that we can pray for Australia and make sure that everyone is safe, everyone is doing well, no harm will be done to any other people here. No government action will actually come to anything else from this too. And today I'm going to go over just. I'm gonna put this into 2 parts. I've decided to put 2 parts, meaning Tuesday and Thursday. So instead of Sermons in the Sky this week, because it's a very important program that just came out a week ago, I'm gonna talk about the general idea of the program today, and then I'll talk more detailed on Thursday, so you guys will get a better idea of the different things that actually came out. So let me first go into this program. Now, Channel 7 News over there in Australia is one of the major news outlets, and they have a program called Spotlight. So they'll take a certain subject that they want to spotlight, and they're going to focus only on that. Okay? So for me, being one of the major news outlets in Australia, my first thoughts were I was really disappointed. And let me tell you why. Let me give you a general synopsis of what I saw. All right. So the reason why I was disappointed is because if you're a major news outlet, you should be vetting the information that you get. But just like Netflix, they used a ton of stuff from the past, like decades ago, right? Which is like a lot of the stuff was coming from Netflix, stuff that's already been proven wrong. It's already been proven wrong, or it's still in trial. So let me give you some ideas. Like I'll go into the major details later, but in the very beginning, it's the way that it's filmed and the way that it's edited. It's very dark and ominous, right? Which means that there is already a judgment that this program has made, even though the trial in Korea hasn't even finished yet, right? Like, let's just pretend, right? Let's just say for hypothetically that Sunseam actually wins the trial. Then what happens to this program? You know what I mean? So a lot of this, it's very, very interesting how this comes out while a trial is still going on. It's going to sway public opinion and stuff like that too. But when I looked at this, number one is I was very disappointed because it was super one-sided. And the way that everything was edited, from the editing, the cuts, and the music's like, kind of like, it's so dark and creepy, like that type of music being used for and you know how music plays such a huge role, like in movies. When you hear music, it like triggers some type of emotion. All the music being used in this programming is like dark. It's like, dun, dun, ch, ch. And it's just like, imagine someone speaking over that music. And it doesn't matter anything that person says, even if they say something that is true, that if you put that music behind it, it makes it feel like this is wrong. There's something wrong with what this person is saying. You know what I mean? So when I saw that, I was like, I was kind of disappointed in that because two things already. Number one is there's a ton of assumptions. Number two is the information wasn't vetted. So you're having a lot of information that's being put out there that is already incorrect. We already have the answers to it, just like Netflix did, right? Third one is the editing and the audio. It was kind of like very sensationalized, very ominous and dark the way that they were doing it. And the language they used was very like, this is the first time anyone has been in Wolmyeongdong, right? And for me, I'm just like, well, no, it's not, because we do have a ton of stuff on YouTube and stuff like that anyways. Like, we do have stuff that's already out, right? This is the first time. Sorry, I have a bad Australian accent too. So even that kind of stuff, I was looking at like, it doesn't really... it was too much on one side. It was kind of like a hit piece more than anything else. They had a couple of people they interviewed, from Rick Ross, who is a cult deprogrammer. I'm not sure what he knows about Providence, but he was someone who helped that first person get out. And, he made some very, very, I'm not sure, I know there's a word, gross, what do you call that? Gross assumption, maybe? Like, it was gross assumption where he says that this is what Providence is about. Providence is all about money, free labor, and sex. That's what he says Providence is about. So, if here's a guy saying this type of stuff, but all the people who are listening right now and all the experiences you've had in Providence, I don't think you would say that, yeah, Providence just wants my money. And the answer is, how many times does Sunseem say, if you don't have offering, you don't have to give it? Don't worry, you got to eat. You got to do these types of things. Sunseem rarely talks about offering. Isn't that kind of shocking? Because when you go to a lot of different other churches, they always talk about offering. But Sunseem rarely talks about offering. Free labor, like that, like a lot of these things, the gross assumptions that were coming out, and that's why I was like, oh, okay. And there's a lot of things that were stated that didn't have evidence behind them, and I'll go over that more in on the Thursday one. And KDH actually came out on this program, and once again he talks about the 10,000 girls, that he reached his goal, or maybe over 10,000 girls. And of course, we already know that this is a big black eye for the media right now, because when it comes to, say, sexual assault, whenever there's anyone going to be accused, there's always a list of names that are given out. And when it came to KDH talking about the 10,000 girls, there is no list. And even when they produced some names, the names weren't even full names. They were missing their last name. They're missing a certain part of their name or whatever it was. So this is why a lot of people now in Korea don't really trust this 10,000 girls things that KDH said. But he repeated most of the stuff that he said from Netflix, right? The mosquito net incident came up. Everything was from Netflix, right? And the story of Liz, who was the one that was, who left maybe a decade ago, whatever it was, 10, 15 years ago. And then one thing that made it even more ridiculous for me, and even when I say the word ridiculous, I am being objective. And the reason why I'm saying, some people say, oh, Pastor Sky, you don't sound objective anymore because now you're using words like ridiculous. And the answer is this. The reason why it's ridiculous is, number one, this is a professional news agency, and they don't vet their material. That even, they went even so far as to saying, and there's a real recording. So they're using the recording from the Netflix, the one that is highly contested. And people are, and forensics came out saying, we don't have the original. It is definitely manipulated. But they are using that audio like it's real. And that's why it's ridiculous for a news station like that, not knowing that in the trial in Korea, this is a thing that's most likely not even going to be able to be used as evidence, right? But they're saying that this is a real this is a real recording. It's not vetted. It's totally sensationalized. It's already on one side. And when I looked at that, I was like, using the fake audio makes no sense, because even the courts right now, it's probably going to be discussed in July 18th, is can we accept it? But we already know that it's been manipulated. You know what I mean? So using that recording makes this Spotlight program even more highly suspect. Very, very highly suspect, right? So for me is I watched it and I took a look at it and I saw something that was very, very similar to what Netflix did. So remember, Netflix is the whole, those 8 episodes are all leading towards the climax, which is at the very end where Maple's like, and here is the audio. I actually recorded him doing this to me. So everything has to lead to that one point, right? So how did they do it in Netflix? Well, you had 8 episodes and you had 6 of the episodes all talking about things from decades past, right? And most of the stuff, I already talked, you'll hear about, if you go into my Netflix summaries that I did on my YouTube channel, that talks about it's 3 episodes, not 8 episodes, 3 episodes, right? I talk about the 3 different episodes, and I talk episode by episode, all the parts that are wrong, the things that did not make sense, the things that are already proven to be wrong, right? But what do you see? So I see the same type of style of narration, meaning they'll take a bunch of stuff, and the way that they pass it on is they say, this is actual live testimony, right? So the reason why that is a smart way of doing it, because regardless if it's correct or incorrect, it is true that it is live testimony. So it's not about whether the testimony is true or false. It's just telling the audience, this is real testimony. And the answer is, it was real testimony. They're not going to tell you whether it was accepted or not. They're not going to tell you that the evidence came against it. All they're saying is, this is real live testimony, right? And what Netflix did to build the narration is they go into all the crazy stuff that was accused in the past, and they keep going to mosquito net, this. So what it does is it builds a narrative and it builds the story in the listener's mind, like, oh my gosh, this is going on forever. Oh, this is going here. Oh, and this. Oh, and then by the time you get to that last point, it explodes like, wow, and now it's happening again, right? So you take a lot of stuff that is so controversial and really, really bad, things that are already disproven, and then by the end point, it's going to be, and now this happened. So it's building a narrative to make it like that last point that you have to believe what is happening. Even though now we see that like, think about this. If their case was super solid, you don't need to go into stuff that is already proven wrong, because anyone could look it up and say it's wrong. And that's what's happening right now in Korea with a lot of YouTubers saying that, nope, that's not true and this is not true, right? If it's open and shut case, you just got to talk about, yes, there's a lot of things in the past, this, and this, and there was a trial. And you could say something as true as, and he was convicted, because the answer is he was, right? But after that, you can go into the main part, which is the actual evidence and stuff coming out for Maple and Amy, right? However, it's kind of building it with false things, which makes us, for those of us who know the information to the trials and all the things that happened in the past, you're like, why would you use a bunch of lies to try to prove something that is right? You know what I mean? Like, why would you use all this information in Netflix for the first 2 episodes of things that we know is wrong to try and prove something is right? Like, think about this. If someone tells you 10 things and 9 of them are lies, what would you think about the 10th one, right? But when it comes to media, they're banking on everyone just believing because they wrote it, they said it, right? Same thing happens in this Channel 7 Spotlight program. When you look at the general census of it, it's doing the exact same thing. Thing is, they have something at the end of the video that they want to use as this explosive thing. And honestly, I'll go into more details about it later, but the last video at the very end has nothing to do with censorship. It got nothing to do with censorship. But they want to use all the information from Netflix and even the things that are disproven or things that are still being talked about in court to prove that this shows that this is all wrong, and this final segment of what they think of the Australian church must be true kind of thing. Right? So it's kind of using the exact same thing where they take a narrative and they take a bunch of things that look really, 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 really bad, And then with all these things, they're going to say, and bam, look at this last thing we show you. This is how bad it really is. And I'll tell you how crazy it is, like how ridiculous this episode is. At the very, very end, they basically are accusing the church of sex trafficking. That is crazy. That is ridiculous. Think about that. Sex trafficking. That is so far beyond what anyone... I'm just like, what? It's so crazy. Like, that's how far it goes, that they take all those things from Netflix, they talk about all the things of the past, and then they lead it to that one point and they say, oh, so they're sex trafficking. And it's kind of like, whoa. Like, if they're going to say something that crazy, yeah, that's why they need all those things from Netflix to kind of build the story for the audience to say, oh my goodness, sex trafficking. Oh, it must be true. So this is why when I looked at it, I was like, it's a very, very similar MO to the Netflix. And the problem they're going to face in the future, even with this Channel 7 News broadcast, is that eventually someone's going to come out. I'm going to share about some of the stuff they talked about in, I'll go into detail on Thursday. They're going to see that a lot of these things aren't true. Yes, the testimony was given, but it doesn't mean it's a true testimony. And when we go into some more detail, this channel, most likely, it'll be an embarrassing thing. Like, this is not true. And then they're going to be like, whoa, like, what do we do from there? So that's kind of my general thoughts, looking at from like the big picture bird's eye view. I'll go into a little bit more detail on Thursday, but I'm going to be honest, a lot of it's just going to be talking about the exact same thing. Which is what? Which is a bunch of it's Netflix stuff. So a lot of it, I could just go back to my Netflix information and say, well, this, we already proved that. We proved this. Now, the new stuff is at the end, and that's something that we could talk about on Thursday too. But yeah, definitely, guys. That's kind of my thoughts on it so far. And when I use the word ridiculous, I'm not using it in terms of I'm being biased. I'm using it in terms of because it's a real news agency that's not vetting their information, and even using like the Netflix audio that's still being disputed in court right now, but saying that it's true. And that's why I'm saying it's ridiculous. It kind of makes no sense to me that they would go that far. And then, of course, that accusation that we're sex trafficking. Like, honestly, guys, all you guys out there, I think you guys will say that that is one of the most ridiculous accusations. Yeah, for me, I was mind blown that they would even bring. I was like, what? Like, that's so. Yeah, it almost feels like it's just clickbait for me when they go that far. But either way, so let's see what happens here. Let's make sure that our prayers go out to the church in Australia, and I'll go a little bit more detail into it in details when into the Thursday episode for Sermons in the Sky. I'll use that for part 2. All right, so let's pray for them, and I hope that you guys enjoyed, once again, this Provi in the media. This is a really, really big one here, but more importantly, it's our members. I really, really care about everyone over there in Australia. A lot of good friends are over there too, and we're not there, so it's a lot easier for us to digest, but they're in the middle of it, and that's why, their friends and family are going to see this episode and stuff like that too, and some of the leaders' faces came out in the episode also, so my heart really goes out to all the leaders and all the members over there in Australia. Either way. Okay. So there it is, guys. That is the end of Provi in the Media. Hope you guys really enjoyed that. Hope you guys have an awesome Tuesday. And we'll see you guys again tomorrow on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8.
It's the Morning Star Drive 117.8. You soaring up with sky, now's the time, don't delay. I'm sitting in my ride and it's time to fly. So let's realign, just listen and fill your mind.
I'm burning with desire and the